Hello and welcome to another edition of Meet the Mayor. And as usual, the mayor is here. Mr. Mayor, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, John.
Good to
Doing
see
great.
you.
It's been a long time. We haven't done this
It's been
in
a while, I know.
several months, so it's good to see you.
Always good to see you. And we also have a very, very special guest today. Sitting next to me here is Chief Erickson, the police chief of the village of East Hampton.
Thank you, John, for having us. I know we've been trying to do this, and our schedules haven't aligned, but it's happy to finally.
Me too. You know, we spent the summer, the mayor and I said, well, we have to have the chief on. Well, let's wait till he get the exam. Let's wait till he get the exam. It never came. So like it took months for you to, between the time you took the actual chief exam until I actually told you that you had passed it.
Yeah, I mean, it
Must have been-
was a long, tedious and stressful time, because usually the civil service process, you take a test and you're on a list and then you get promoted. Kind of backdoor this with the chief's exam, they promote you. We were waiting, you take the exam, which I took in March 23rd of 24, and then the results usually about 6 months or so. And civil service, you're held hostage by them, and it was not till September 11th. So it was a little bit of an anxious time because you're required to pass, to be fully promoted to the position of chief in New York State. So thankfully, that process and waiting is over, and it takes a lot of stress off, and able to do the job of the village chief a little bit freer and have a little bit more time, because there was a tremendous amount of studying that was involved in that, and I'm really glad that's over. It was a stressful time in my
Well,
life.
Congratulations, belatedly, but we're really glad that we always knew you'd pass it.
Yeah.
We had faith in you.
It's funny because it's a very difficult test for one, and the results usually come out. I was just thinking when you said that the results actually used to come out in 3 months. You take it in March, and you would know by June, the end of June, the beginning of July, and this just dragged on and dragged on, and it's a bad position to put the chief in as an acting chief and then have all this pressure on you to have to pass this test. I went through the same exact thing he did, and I remember when I was sitting in the test thinking, man, if I don't pass this test, I'm gonna be embarrassed, I'm gonna be a letdown to my family, I'm gonna be, and I remembered before I went and took the test, I was told by a chief, an older chief in Riverhead, Dave Hagermiller, that, listen, when you take the test, if anybody dies in any of the scenarios, you have failed the test. And I'm going through this thing and somebody dies in the test, and I was like, oh my goodness, now, but that wasn't true. And I actually passed it, but you talk about a lot of undue stress. It is really terrible. And I felt bad for him that he had to go through all that and then wait that extra time. And you know how long summers are. And it just, and then you're into September. It was just a big relief when
Yeah,
the
you're at the
results
whim
came
of
out.
the state.
Yeah,
The
I
state
know, it's
is,
ridiculous.
holds you hostage.
In fact, I met your wife at one of the Tuesday events, and we were talking about it, and she was really nervous about it. And I said, don't worry, he can do it.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're glad you all
Yeah,
passed
it
it.
all worked out.
Let's go back a little bit and give us a little bit of your background. You tell us where you were born,
Yeah.
how
So
you came to be here.
I grew up in Stony Brook, New York, in the middle of the island. I went to college up at SUNY Oswego and graduated with a teaching degree. And one weekend, a colleague from next door in my dorm room said, "Do you want to go down to Suffolk and take the Suffolk police test?" And I had, all right. So we came down, took a test. Lo and behold, later on, I had taken a teaching job, and then Suffolk County called me, because you're pulled off a list. So you take the test, and you get canvassed when they get down to your number. And my number was called by Suffolk County Police and the village at the same time. When the laws with the civil service, once the village exhausts, and we're going through that process right now for hiring too. Once the village list is exhausted, then they can go to the county list. So I had my background investigation, and Jerry was my background investigator actually at the time when he was in the detective squad. That had him through at the same time, and being a 24-year-old kid, I was like, I don't know, first one in law enforcement in my family. The first one that called, which was East Hampton Village, I, took that job. And, in hindsight, it was a very good move for me, prosperous career. I moved through the ranks as a PO, done some really interesting things. I taught DARE for 4 years in the elementary school, which was a really rewarding experience, especially with my teaching background. So it was nice to use that. I've been on the Emergency Service Unit, which is a town-wide with East Hampton Town, East Hampton Village, and Sag Harbor. We have a group of dedicated, highly trained individuals, about 16 of us. And some of you might have seen them out. We have an armored car. So I was on that unit for many, many years, now that moved on with this position. I was a sergeant, I was a lieutenant, a captain, and then, luckily,
Here you are.
by the grace of God, I'm here as
So you spent your entire career here in the village.
yeah.
You've had every position known to
I
Compton.
detective. I didn't do detective, but that's fine. That really wasn't. I liked being on the road.
He took the other road,
Yeah.
John. He took the
High road.
PBA.
High road. No,
He took the union side of things.
Yeah, I was in the union for until I got this, but I was president for 12.
And he did a
12
great
years.
job. He did a
It's-
great job as PBA president.
But you're kind of like on the other side. It's a little, can be a little bit of a battle, but certainly isn't that way now with this administration and the mayor.
Now, you said you didn't come from police, but your brother.
My brother is a Suffolk County police officer too, so he came on after me, and he works for the Suffolk County Police Department. He's a Marine Bureau, and now he's at the firearms training section in West Hampton. So he's been there 32 years, so.
So he just followed his big
He
brother.
follows, actually, I'm his little brother. I have an identical twin. I was the second one. I was the bonus. So, yeah.
you an identical twin?
Yeah, I have an identical twin, yeah. Which creates all sorts of chaos when I go to the academy because they think of my brother and people aren't, why isn't he talking to me? But I'm kind of used to that at this point, because I have a lot of good colleagues and friends that are Suffolk County police officers. I stay in touch with them, and people see me, they don't quite even understand.
So you say you're the second born, so he says he was the first born.
Well, he was. That's what the birth certificate says. There's 4 minutes difference between us. So he was. I'm the last.
I have, my father was a twin and my grandchildren are twins, and they do the same thing. Who's older? Well,
Who's
you're
that?
not older.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah,
so that's terrific.
Yeah, all good.
So I have to interrupt. I'm going to ask him to tell a funny story, and I have him do this quite a bit. But when he came out for his interview for the village police department, he met our chief at the time, which was Chief Glenn Stometz, who was by far a wonderful, wonderful man and also a great chief of police. And he's long since passed, but I have to ask him to tell you that story.
So
This is the hiring story.
This was a hiring story. So I
Please.
came out for my
Tell us.
initial interview and met Lieutenant Saris and the chief, as we do now. I'll meet with candidates. And he said, come on, kid, let's get in the car. And I wasn't from out here, so I really didn't have any idea I don't think I ever was in the Hamptons, being that way, being from up west. So he gave me a tour of East Hampton Village in his car. And we come up a road, Baiting Hollow Road, from the estate section down in Georgia, and we come to the traffic light. And I'm kind of in awe driving around, big houses, that's not where I grew up, so all of a sudden, next thing you know, we're in the intersection and we get into an accident. He goes through the red light. I wasn't even paying attention. And
he went through the red
He
light.
went through the red and we got T-boned.
Oh, my God.
And we're in the accident in the middle of that intersection, and all of the, his forces started showing up. So that was my initial. But I do have a documented neck injury that my attorney says is worth, at least a 5-6 figure. But that's another.
We'll negotiate that.
We'll negotiate that afterwards, because I even have a hard time looking at
I
you,
can
John.
imagine.
You can see
Well,
that.
I can understand that
I'm in a
part.
lot of pain right now, John.
I can
but it's-
understand that part.
Yeah, pain is good with settlement.
So, so that was a very,
It's a great,
nobody got hurt, so it was a very
luckily.
humorous,
except for the neck.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
yes, it's.
The permanent.
humorous introduction.
Permanent.
for
That
Jeff.
was my initial time in East Hampton, so it is, It was
Well, that's something you'll
fun.
never forget.
Yeah, he was a great chief, he was a great man, you know.
Yeah, we miss him.
Yeah.
He was a
And
good
even
man.
after LA, you took the job.
After all that, yeah.
That's
yeah,
great.
True.
So
What year was that?
I got hired, that was 91.
91.
When
We
the
had just
academy-
moved. So we had just moved to the new headquarters.
Yeah, it was sometime before October of 91, because I went to the
We used to have our headquarters on Newtown Lane, where the Gucci store is now. That was the police department.
17.
And way back when, that was the fire department.
wow.
So, very interesting. You can actually see it. If you drive by that building, you'll see how you can picture the garage doors for like the fire department.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Huh. Terrific. So let's talk about the force. How many folks do you have under you?
Well, I have a communications section that falls under me, which is when the public calls 911, that all, for the whole town of East Hampton, the whole jurisdiction, and Sag Harbor comes to East Hampton Village. So I have, under me, I have 16 there, and a supervisor, 17, and then my sworn force at full capacity is 27. I'm down 2 right now. I have a couple of 2 of my female officers that are in-house because they're on maternity, but they'll be back on the road after their pregnancy is completed. So I'm a little short right now, but I do have the mayor has given me and the village board has given me the funding to hire to bring us up to that full complement. It's just, as other chiefs know in other towns, it's very difficult, the civil service process. To hire, and it's just for instance, the county was at a Suffolk Chiefs meeting, they put out 1,000 letters, right? They want to put a class of 200 in. Only 330 people responded to that. So unfortunately, less people are taking the test, less people are interested in the job, so that creates a problem in itself. But it's not that I'm asking for the funding. I have the funding for it, which it has been fantastic. The village board and the village administrator has really funded the police department and put public safety at the forefront. So I don't have to beg and grovel. I ask, and usually if it's justified, I'm blessed to be able to do that. So hopefully we get those 27. I do have seasonal. I have a graduation for a part-time police officer next week. So that'll be to the ranks. We can use him seasonally in the summer, 40 hours, and after September 15th, he goes back to 20. So he will add to the ranks of providing the extra services, beach patrol, foot patrol, things that are extra and kind of bonus that we can give the community, the store owners, that we don't have the manpower to do in our busy season. So
you said that you're not getting as many folks who are interested in the job. Is that something new?
That's because there used to be, 20,000 people that would take the Suffolk County Police. It was under 10, and it's just, I don't know if it's across the country, the stigma towards policing and everything, the nonsense that's gone on in that. People don't want to get involved in it. It's disheartening. But I mean, hopefully we can overcome that, and I think we are here. I mean, certainly in East Hampton, this is a great community to work. We have a lot of support from our residents, town and village. Mostly praise. Obviously we get civilian complaints. People aren't happy to get tickets, and so be it. But
I know the feeling.
Yes. So it's not a community that doesn't support their police. So that helps. When you have support from the politicians and you have support from the public, it certainly makes the stresses on the job as being a police officer, which we all know is very difficult, very comforting, and makes the job that much easier.
And it costs us, the village, how much to do all this?
Well,
What's the
my
budget?
operating budget for the police department is about $6 million. And then with the dispatch and so it's a little over $6 billion operating budget for police and dispatch. We also have a nice agreement and a really nice partnership with the school, East Hampton Schools, and Adam Fine and their board, which I'd like to talk a little bit about because it's kind of a trend-setting idea with all the awful things and the active shooter events that we see across the country.
Sure.
The school district here in East Hampton has really I think, been on the forefront of this. And how do we deal with the safety of our staff and our students? And we've engaged in a partnership where they're paying out of their tax rolls for 2 of the 3 officers that we have and overtime to guarantee that an armed police officer is in the middle school and the elementary school every day that it is open. And if there's overtime that's required, they do that. We bill them at the end of the year for 2. So they're paying for 10 months basically out of the year and overtime costs. And then we get the benefit when it's our busy season in July and August to have those 2 extra officers on the road to crew to quality of life issues, speeding, fill-in patrols if people are out. So it's you hear about it. People are asking, and this district, East Hampton, Adam Fine, and the school board said, well, let's put it forth. Let the taxpayers, they did a nice campaign, and the taxpayers agree overwhelmingly, 80% positivity, and I think it's the best way. When you talk about different ways of providing security, who's better, right? Let the teachers teach, let law enforcement, and we can be a partner with them. And it's builds, and it goes back to my days as teaching DARE. It's a nice relationship, and it's positive to have, our officers are in the gym playing basketball, and they're sitting down at recess. So it's all not negative, because a lot of the times, it's associated negative with police, whether we come to their house for a domestic, after hours, or somebody gets hurt. A lot of times with policing, it's a negative. So it's a way to give back to the community that's a positive for the children and create a nice bond there. So it's really a kudos to the school district to do that for us and to provide that level of security, amongst other levels that they do from locking the doors and all sorts of activations. They're really ahead of their time, the East Hampton School District, providing security for the students and
It's
staff.
really a program that should be followed throughout the country. I mean, it's really, prior to the school paying for 2 officers, we would provide 2 officers, but there was no guarantee that they would be there every day. If one was sick, or we wouldn't backfill that necessarily with an officer. So you might have a school that didn't have a police officer that day. So this program really works well. And like the chief said, when school's closed, we get the benefit of having those officers and only paying a fraction of the salary.
Right.
So,
And the study
Gives
shows,
the village people a feeling of security, and this whole school
yeah,
thing
the
is
town
so frightening
residents,
to
because
everybody.
the majority of the students in the East Hampton School District are,
Town
are
residents,
town
right.
residents, but they pay. And, studies show those awful events that happen across the country, those schools that have SROs in there, the death and damage is reduced.
Yep.
Because the faster in active shooter situations you stop the threat, stop the killing, the better lives, more lives you're going to save. So having armed police officers in the school is a good model, and it's comforting, I hope, to the parents and to the students and the staff too.
I think it's terrific. Let's pivot to something else that both of you are involved with, is the immigration issue. With the crackdown of the new administration, must be putting a lot of stress on the folks here and on you. Do you
mostly on the,
Go ahead.
the residents, because, there was a big fear that things had changed since the new administration had taken over in the federal government. And we held a press conference, and we brought in as many people from the public as we could, but we also brought in the local Spanish newspaper so that we could get the word out to the Hispanic community that nothing's changed with local policing. We haven't been mandated by the federal government to do anything different than we've been doing even during the Biden years. So we wanted to get that message out because there's a lot of fear in the community, a lot of it based on rumors and assumptions. So we wanted to have the correct information get out to the community to kind of calm things down. And, the chief and I talked, and the last thing we wanted to see happen was there anything going on within the community where victims would be afraid to come forward to the police to report something because they'd be in fear that they would be deported. So we wanted to make sure people were not afraid, that the police, the local police, were not interested in their immigration status. So, and currently, we still have not received any different operating orders from the federal government. Nothing's changed. So if the federal government issues a judicial warrant for the arrest of somebody for a crime, and we stop that person, and that information becomes known to us, then we have to take action.
Right.
But if it's an administrative function that's done by the federal government that's in the computer system, local police do not have the authority to take anybody into custody for that or hold anybody for any length of time for administrative things. So it was important, we thought, to get that information out to our local community, because the last thing we wanted was any type of chaos going on in East Hampton.
Sure.
And the town did similar. The town police and the town board had a meeting earlier in the day that before our meeting, and they did very similar, information to everybody at their board meeting. So, and then I'm the president of the East End Mayors Association, and I had the authority from each one of the mayors to represent them as well, that the same message for their communities.
Mm-hmm.
And the town supervisor of Southampton also allowed me to speak for her.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was very well done. I think having the Spanish newspaper there to then get that information out to the Spanish community or the Hispanic community was very helpful. And I feel that the temperature has come down a little bit. I don't feel that people feel we're in a crisis right now.
Terrific.
I don't know.
From a policing point of view, was there anything people should know about if they get stopped or if they need to call the police for any reason?
Well, and that was as the mayor said, the idea, from a policing standpoint, we don't want to have victims out there. We don't want people getting taken advantage of, whether it's whatever type of crime, violent crime, theft crime, and feel that they're going to engage the police and they're going to be deported.
Mhm.
And that would be bad. Or even on a car stop. They think they're illegal in here on a car stop, and then they're going to get into a pursuit and endanger the public and our officers. So to try to calm that down. So we haven't had that. We haven't had any of those judicial warrants yet, but we anticipate it will be coming. But the policy, as the mayor said, has not changed. The only thing that's changed is administrations. So our policy has been the same, through the first Trump, through the Biden, through this Trump, and nothing has changed on what we do. Just like if it was a warrant out of Nassau County, if it's a warrant signed by a judge, we honor it, and we deal with our federal, and we'll assist our federal counterparts as we do. Our town police, we back them up. Suffolk. So nothing's really changed. When you break it down, it's not about black or white or Hispanic or you have a judicial warrant that we're obligated to
Crime is crime.
Enforce, and that something was done for a judge to sign a warrant.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that the individual is Hispanic has no
Terrific.
no bearing on it.
So they should feel comfortable that things are.
That was hopefully.
Yeah, that was the message to try to get out to
We were trying to send, and hopefully it'll.
Good. The other thing is the village wants to put its own court in. Am I right?
Say that again?
The village, you're starting a court.
Oh, court,
Yes.
yes. So, since the 90s, when I was a detective, I've been pushing that I thought the village should have its own court. And going back in time when bail used to be an issue, we would arrest somebody, we'd bring them to court, they'd post bail, then they wouldn't show up for court, and the bail gets forfeited to the court, which is the town.
Mm-hmm.
So we would never realize any of that money. Then we would get a warrant from the court for this person, and we would have to expend more money to go get this person, bring them back to court.
So if you take them to court and they skip bail,
Right.
the money goes somewhere else,
Right.
and then you guys have to go find them.
Exactly.
At more expense.
More taxpayer money,
Got it.
right. So That was always my argument to the judges down there, that we should be getting that money and be able to use that money, but that never happened. So fast forward now, well, even back then, traffic summonses. We issue between 2,000 and 3,000 traffic summonses, the kind where you're getting pulled over, a speeding ticket, a stop sign. Those tickets are handled by the local town court. The village gets zero money on any of the fines. The state gets the money, the town gets the money, and we get no money. We do get money for our parking tickets and our village code summonses, but our taxpayers are also paying to use the court. So I think it doesn't seem fair to me. So we have decided to look into creating our own court. We hired our local attorney to do the research. And what's important to know is that every East End village that has its own police department has its own court. So we're the only one that doesn't. Not that that makes it a reason to have, but for all the things that I'm saying, I think it makes sense to have. If 3,000 tickets a year times, even if it's $200, is a lot of money. And then on top of that, we would also, the taxpayers of the village would get their tax money back. So we wouldn't be paying for the town court. So for those reasons alone, we should have our own court. And then what I've reached out to our assemblyman and our senator, or state senator, to introduce legislation to be able to enforce stop sign enforcement by photo, where we can mail the tickets.
Right.
And the same with speeding enforcement, which will go a long way, and I've talked about this before on your show, is that our back roads are being used as bypasses, and there's high speeds, unsafe conditions. So this would go a long way, if we put those cameras on those back roads, we would be able to enforce that, we'd be able to slow the traffic down, make it safer, and change the way the traffic apps think, and move the traffic back onto Montauk Highway where it belongs. So in order to do the photo enforcement, you have to have your own court. So that is another huge reason why we need a court. So we have the court moving forward, and we have these legislations moving forward in the state. And if those two legislations pass, it'll just be a pilot program for us and Southampton Village
I see.
in Suffolk County.
Now, who has to approve you're getting a court?
Well, it has to be approved by the Assembly and then
It has to go through
the
all
Senate,
that. Yep,
and then the governor would have to sign it.
got it. And once again,
Yep.
it looks like we're at the clock on the wall. We've used all our time, and I don't know where it goes.
I know, we still have half an agenda
First
to
of
go.
all, thank you, and thank you so much for coming.
John,
I
it's a
really
pleasure. I'm
enjoyed
glad we could
seeing you.
finally put
I'm
this
so
together.
glad. It's always
Thanks, John.
great to see you. See you next time.